Hello there, I'm Scotulus, and this is Teppen Deck Tech, where I present to you decks that are fun, strong, or interesting. Today we are playing the legendary mono-black combo deck, Wesker Uroboros. Uro lets us revive our highest cost legendary from the graveyard, and will give us access to the single most high impact combo in standard ranked by resurrecting Yami, who will basically win us the game as soon as it attacks a single time. I've put off making this deck for a while because it's so expensive and the deck is very complex, but the new vial was too cool for me to wait any longer. I'll have timestamps below to where I talk about all the legendaries that you do or do not need to play the deck, as well as other specific things that you need to know if you're gonna play this deck right. The modern combo version of Uroboros that we play has a very specific win condition, other than just reviving Yami, and that is to mill ourselves down to exactly 10 cards in deck, or at least 14. The payoff for this being Abyss of Death, which summons any unit for 2 MP. At 2, this effect is genuinely overpowered, but it takes a bit to set up. You can use it to mill yourself before you're at 10, so you don't brick, but if you're going to win, you want to do everything you can to save this card until you have 14 cards in deck. So, with this very specific goal in mind, we are playing 3 False Throne, which sends 1 card, always Yami the first time, Poison Gas Belt, which sends 2 cards, Shen Gaoran also sends 2 cards, and Storm of Death, which sends 3 cards. With that info in mind, this deck requires a very specific and strange skill to play, that being the ability to find the number below where your life is and subtracting down to 14, because 14 is when Abyss is live. For example, when you're down to 18 cards, you can use Storm of Death to make the number go down by 4, putting you right at 14. Since you start at 25, if you False Throne and use all 3 Poison Glass Cloud, you're now already at 14 for Abyss. One of the Gas Cloud can be Shen Gaoran, which, speaking of, gets to the other skill of this deck, which is not wasting your mana. Shen is a very imposing unit that can put on damage and require resources from your opponent while letting you charge your MP back up, if you play it like one. It could also just eat a block and not be worth the 7 MP, because we get the same effect from the 1 MP Gas Cloud. So, to actually make Shen scary and worth the MP, you usually want to play it in its own lane, and then not do anything. When your opponent responds, just take the free MP in action phase, but otherwise don't waste your resources. Eventually, you will pop your combo and MP will stop being relevant, but before then, you have to play basically from behind on MP, which is easy if you do it confidently. The last few cards we play are 2 brothers reunited to end games and for comebacks. We are playing 2 copies only because we might mill one. It's too expensive to really play 2 in the game. I did try 1 Servant Admonition in place, but that felt somehow worse. The second brothers should probably be another tech of some kind, but playing 2 makes me feel safe that I will draw it when I need it. Nakarkos is basically a 3rd copy of Brothers, except it's amazing to pull off of Yami, and sorta bad to pull off of Revives. I've tested playing 2 because it's so cool, but you can only use it when you already set up your win con, so it's awkward. And with only 1 copy, it'll never summon another of itself. It's definitely worth playing, but because drawing it early is so bad, you really only want 1. Our last non-legendary is Cause of the Bug, which lets us kill anything, while breaking boards and having synergy with 2 of our legendaries. This card is way stronger than I expected. If you're not totally sold, you can play Destructive Instinct instead, but this card is more efficient than it, and is what I settled on in my build. And finally, we are on to our daunting suite of 10 legendary cards. I made a specific point of playing every single legendary that I could easily justify. The one I'm arguably missing is Ustanak, who you can swap out for Lisa if you want to, since both give us a better control game. I prefer the Lisa Trevor for being guaranteed value and for shredding 2-color decks, while Ustanak will mostly help in games where you fully mill yourself out. Ustanak also makes milling yourself 1 card harder, so he's a mixed bag to me. The 2 other optional legendaries are Last Judgment and Sharing Memories. If you're missing these, you can just run a 3rd Cause of bug or a destroyer that you like, but having at least 1 will make a big difference. Sharing Memories in particular lets us win matches we never would otherwise and is an incredible equalizer, but it's also easy to let it become a crutch. The card can basically delete any mistake you make, so it's really good to have, but there's a strange skill to using it. Like, you don't want to leave your opponent with 10 MP while you have 0. It also rotates soon, but the card is incredible. A little more straightforward is Last Judgment, which kills anything and has a chance to give you a ton of value. To actually get the buff, you do need to be a little bit ahead, usually thanks to something like a revive or a free Lisa Trevor. Everything else is core to the deck. Yami, of course, we've talked about, is the deck that dictates the shape of the deck, and is the one card that you need to start building Uroboros. If you're unfortunate enough to draw it, just try to set up at least 2 cards engraved before you play it for 10 anyway. This card is so good that even charging obviously and slowly up to 10 will still usually win you the game if you draw at least 1 guy back. And if you summon it with Uro, your opponent will need a disarm on reaction or it's over. Other than summoning Yami, proccing Raymarsh is the main focus of our deck. She is a win con on her own and the best removal spell in the game. If you can set her up, you will probably win the game, especially when you can use it at just the right time when you know your opponent is going for something big. Raymarsh is basically the play that gives our deck its X factor, which is why we are playing 2 copies of her, by using the Goddess's Dagger. If we mill out our entire deck before we use this, we are guaranteed to pull Raymarsh, and if she's not there, we still go up to 15 anyway. We do also play Overseer Alex Wesker, who can be revived by Dagger, but she will usually be transformed into Vile Killer Alex Wesker, putting her above 6. Vile Killer Alex is also basically our best random revive, and being 4 MP makes her a great early card. The last truly core card to the deck is Rite of Reincarnation, which is basically a 4th Abyss that we can use on turn 1 with Shen. This card summons anything, and when it does, it's sudden and surprising, because it's easy to forget about, which makes it a great way to win the game. The very last cards we play are our 8 MP boss monsters, first being Victory's Whip Franziska, who is truly the glue that holds this deck together. She is a huge reason to play this deck before AVP rotates. She will put a clock on our opponent at any time, and for most decks is a nightmare to deal with. Our matchups basically live and die by this card. And our final boss is Destructive Force Vile 5. The second you play this card, you get value thanks to the rush attacking effect. The Destroy is a good bonus, but even in matchups where it might matter, it feels a little random. The constant pressure and the Unleash making Vile a win condition are the real reason that we play him. He's not quite as important as Franziska, but he does absolutely feel as powerful as her, and is a little more well-rounded. Both will end our games out of nowhere. Here's the deck QR for you, and with all that said, let's get into it. Game 1, we are up against Ado Wong Breakaway, which is probably the meta deck that people are the most scared of moving into the new format. We have a pretty good matchup, since we can play Action Phase real good against them, and by the time they're set up, we will be too. We'll see who actually wins in all of the trades. Our opponent will start off with Psych Block, and we will not respond, because when we activate Pulse Throne, we have the chance to get blue MP from it. Our opponent doesn't respond either, they know how to play the game, and we'll take the 1 free MP they give us by waiting, playing down Shengaoran. We don't feel like playing the 4-minute wait game this time, but that does let our opponent start cycling the actions they were bricked on. They will activate 2 attack reduction actions, and we will use another False Throne, given the blue MP, and our opponent will use Jackpot, which brings our Shen down to 0 attack. At this point, they probably would have used their Dr. Psych or Abduction if they weren't clearly just charging memory. They probably have the Nerscylla in hand. At this point, they finally used their Abduction. We've gotten quite a bit of free value off of it by being able to cast our Storm of Death and Poison Gas Belts for free, and our opponent will play down the Nerscylla just as expected, right when we hit the exact AP for our Ray Marsh Uro combo. We get Yami onto the field, which gets us Franziska to our EX, easily the best card to end the game. With any further plays our opponent will try to make, but they have to deal with Ray Marsh right now before we even need to use Franz. They can use Venom Breath to protect their life a little bit, and Time Distorted will potentially slow us down a bit, but we still have 10 MP. We're just going to play the Yami they send back right onto the field again because we can still get more free value. Our opponent will try to deal with it again, and they bounce it right back to our EX a second time. There wasn't really anything else we wanted to get to our hand, and we will get in the damage we need for Game 1. Game 2, we are up against X, Big Green, Heart Tank, which honestly keeps getting in these videos because it feels so good to make them lose. Hopefully this is one of those times. We drew a couple of our best cycles, and a Shengaoran will start things off with False Throne right as our opponent plays Alligator, and we draw into Cause of the Bug, which is the perfect way to deal with Alligator. 4 MP for 7 is a great trade, and our opponent can't really even make any plays until Alligator is destroyed, while we can make our Alex play right as he is to get the Vile Killer ready. We get in an early 5 and another 5, while our opponent charges up for 10 MP to play Huntsman. Fortunately, at the same time, we can charge up 8 for our Sharing Memories, and when our opponent uses Evasive, we'll take that and a Rejuvenate down with their entire board. Now we're both basically back to 0. We have 2 more MP, I think, than they do, and we'll start charging back up to 10. And while we do, we will use our Storm of Death so that they don't beat us while we charge. We are very close to our win con. We only need 2 more cards in grave. Our opponent plays Hanatada Katsu, and that will let us play 1 more card from our deck. We'll use Cause of the Bug to deal with their 7 MP unit for the second time. We now have 2 of our Abysses ready, which will be huge when we get 1 more card in grave. We'll play our Shengaoran, which gets us down to 12, getting our win condition online, and when our opponent uses Air Raid, we will use our first Abyss of Death. We pull Vile Killer back to the field, who will pull the Alligator away from Shengaoran protecting it, but Alex will lose the trade pretty badly. Our opponent will use Hakai, which gives us the chance to use Poison Gas Belt. We could have gone for Storm of Death, but we'll save it for a more clutch opportunity, such as using Abyss of Death to set up our last judgment on Alligator. If this works, the game is over, and using our arrow to pull a second target that they won't be able to easily take care of ensures the last judgment play. Now we have a 10-16 combo unit, and their disarm was wasted on the unit they had to use it on. We take Game 2. Game 3, we are up against the one and only master of Amaterasu, which means mono red and also some growth doggos. Hopefully, they're gonna show us some good-ass Teppen. We'll start off, like you always do, by charging as much resources as we possibly can. Our opponent plays a Hayabusa, and we will play a Shen in the same lane. Our opponent follows that up with Nina and Momo, creating a very strong board. We'll try to deal with it using Cause of Bug, which allows our opponent to use Jolt for free and allows us to use False Throne for free. When Shen is destroyed, we will get a free Lisa Trevor back from the grave, and Cause of Bug will destroy their entire field except for Nina. We will play Vile Killer Alex Wesker in front of Nia, transforming her, and our opponent will play Sumika and is soon destroying our Alex. They'll play Rashid, investing heavily into their second board they have built, and we will tear it down using Sharing Memories. They will cycle Jolt, which is a kind of bad play here. It lets us cycle our False Throne for free. And at the moment, we don't have our win condition quite ready yet, and we're behind on mana, so we'll cycle one more card to finally get our Abyss of Death ready, and we will use it to summon Franziska, which against red is easy to deal with if you have the one explorer that does it. Anything else would have been huge trouble for him. We're a little behind after that exchange, but we can charge up as much as our opponent lets us. We'll play down Claire Redfield, followed by Sumika, and we'll take the choice on Claire. She'll be a lot harder to destroy, but Sumika's still a pretty good value for them. They'll play down another Hayabusa, adorable, and we will play Nakarkos, bringing back a Shen, also adorable. Our opponent will play Momo in the middle lane, and they will activate Quake. We'll take the opportunity to use our Goddess Dagger, and our opponent will try to stop us, bringing our life down to exactly 5. One more, and we would have been out of the game. We will finally use our Uroboros with the Ray March. We were guaranteed to summon pulling Yami. Now we just need to be somewhat careful, and the game is guaranteed. Our opponent can clear our board, though, using GDI. Now we will make a very risky and very bad play using Last Judgment only on our Yami. If we set up another card to soak the damage or the Last Judgment, that would have been huge, but we played it pretty badly. Our opponent can take out the Vial that we play down to try and win the game using Jolt and the hit from Sagat. We're out of cards in deck, but we still have one more free card to play. We'll play it down, and it will get pulled away from Sagat by their jam. They only need one more damage, and Fated Riders might secure the board for them. We, however, have the chance for Brothers Reunited thanks to the activation, which is so much tempo that we win Game 3. Here we are again, and after staring long into the abyss of death, I think they and I have an understanding. If you take the time to master this deck, it can tear down any opponent, no matter their skill level, and against weaker players, this deck will steamroll them. It's so coherent that you actually do need to be playing meta or something really fast to beat this deck. The only stipulation on this one is it really is that expensive, so it'll take you a while to build it. Unless you're a new player, then snag yourself a gift deck with the 10 legendaries, if you're planning to main black, and you can have one of the coolest decks Teppen has ever seen. As far as matchups go, purple, like you saw, is super doable. Not even brainwashed really brings us down. Black is definitely pretty even, it depends on the deck. Raging Demon you would think would be a very favored matchup since we are above all of their destroys, but cooldown on Franziska puts it way in their favor. Change Form and Despair are definitely a bit more even. The better or luckier player should win. Green is our biggest problem, since their decks are usually a lot faster than we're trying to play. But if we hit our big destroys, it should still be game for us. Red decks I would also call an even matchup, but red players are so crazy that you gotta be on your toes. I would recommend the deck to anybody who wants to combo and wants to win because you're playing combo. And before we reach the end, I want to give a big shout out to Wow Wood, who has been testing and playing this deck for a while on the Teppen Discord. He shared a bunch of great lists and has theory crafted, which gave me a huge head start on making my build. Players like him and the rest of you guys on the Teppen Discord have been a big inspiration to me for a while, and being a part of this community means a lot to me. I just wanted to take some time to formally thank you guys for watching for this time. And as for the next episode, please let me know down below whether you would rather see Tribal, Charge Shot, or some Zero Cyber Peacock shenanigans. You can also let me know if there's any other decks that you want to see that I haven't shown off before, and I'll try to get to them sooner rather than later. So thank you all for watching. Please like the video if you liked the video, subscribe if you subscribed. Once again, I'm Sconchless, and I'll see you in the next one.